million Americans have already cast their ballots, but with a race this tight and with so much at stake this election, every vote on Tuesday will matter. That's a lot of people that have cast ballots, folks. A lot of people that have cast ballots. So, I mean, what do you all... can we just address what Donald Trump said at the top?
Not surprising, though, right? He's told us who he is time and again. And so while it's shocking, this is not unexpected.
You know, when I listened to that just now, I thought about the fact that we're having this conversation about the black vote, and there's been so much discussion about the notion of democracy. And I think it's really important to point out how integral black people in America have been to sustaining the guardrails of democracy, particularly in this time. I don't think that Alvin Bragg gets enough credit. I think that sometimes people forget about Letitia James. I think sometimes people forget about Fani Willis. I think people forget about Beanie Thompson. These are all people in their respective lanes who have done quite a bit to really strengthen and uphold democracy at a time when it's under attack for a country that, to be honest, for the people that we are talking about, hasn't always shown up the same way for them.
I mean, I think that's a really important point, Melissa.
Well, I mean, the one person who hasn't forgotten about Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, and Letitia James
Talk
is
about
Donald Trump. They are definitely living rent-free in his minds. But the thing that's been so striking to me about this race is how Kamala Harris was sort of switched in at the last minute at the top of the ticket, and she has run a virtually flawless campaign against someone who keeps making misstep after misstep. And the polls are basically neck and neck. And I think for a lot of black women, maybe for women more generally, this is very much a situation that they may face in their careers on a regular basis, where you are over-prepared, ready for leadership, and instead you're pitted against someone who's, quite frankly, mediocre.
A mediocre white man that they're telling you can also do your job.
So I'll tell you what, flawless is a bit of a step there. We talk about the bleeding of black men in particular. Certainly things have turned around with the opportunity agenda, but there's never been in our generation, I think we're all in the same generation, where the media and political...
Well, I'm a millennial, I just want to be clear.
Okay, so we got a baby at the table. We got a baby at the table, a fresh little baby, but never in our generation has there been a moment when the media and political lens has been so sharply trained on black men. And for the first time, again, due to those slipping polls, we get to engage with the interiority of black male voters. What do black male voters care about, and how have they not been treated well or welcomed into the party that has this big umbrella and has accepted them?
I mean, would you talk about it? Let's put it up on the screen, the black voter support for candidates. This is from, and I just want to, it's from the New York Times. This is top 5. The New York Times for the control room, Siena poll. And this is looking at the 2024 election, last poll. This is from September 29th to October 6th. Okay, this is the last time they did a drill down on black voters, looking at the exit polling. In the 2020 election, Joe Biden won actually about 87, writ large. It ended up winning about 87% of black voters. 87% of black voters. He won about 92% of black women specifically. In speaking with folks from the Harris campaigns, her advisors and Democratic strategists, they believe that in places like, in some of the battleground states like Georgia, for example, that the vice president is going to hit Joe Biden's 2020 numbers with black voters. In a recent battleground poll that the New York Times did today, she was at about 84, 85% of black voters there. But in some of the other places, given just the landscape of issues, chief among them, I think, the economy, but also the war in Gaza. In Michigan, for example, I don't know what those numbers are going to look like, particularly when it looks like when you drill down into Detroit. Not saying she's going to lose the state, but the makeup of how she wins just might look a little different.
You know, one of the things about that has fascinated me throughout this entire conversation has been micro-targeting around messaging. And I think that as campaigns evolve, they have to respond to different needs as you learn they surface on the campaign trail. When it comes to the black vote, I think to Tremaine's point, this is the first time that we have really had to appreciate the evolution of the black electorate in a way that allows you to speak, or requires rather, you to speak to different pieces and different places of where the black vote is. Particularly when you talk about black men, that was something that was a difference, because on one hand, if you're having a conversation, for example, about student loan forgiveness, that is going to resonate with an upperly mobile section of our electorate. But at the same time, if you're someone who didn't go to college and your friends didn't go to college, that's not an issue that's going to necessarily motivate you to the polls. So this conversation about messaging and how messaging is crafted, whether it's tactical or narrative, has been a huge piece for me as to what I'm watching. But I'm most curious about what have either side really, what have they learned that's going to sort of affect future campaigns and elections as far as messaging to the black vote.
The only face I'm making is about, I'm trying to figure out if Donald Trump has seemed like, or the Republicans have seemed like they've learned anything, because it hasn't been earnest outreach and engagement. I mean,
Donald Trump's message to black male voters is like, hey, I'm a felon. You might have some problems with the criminal justice system too. Maybe we can make common cause. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's a good faith effort to reach out. And this is the same man who wanted the Central Park Five, now the exonerated Five, to be executed. And people still remember that. I wonder if younger voters remember it as well.
He also has, it was a Hail Mary for him. He doesn't have anything to lose. But Charles, to your point about the messaging, one part that I think has been overlooked, I was just in Atlanta, Georgia, talking with black men who their main thrust into the voting booth was maternal mortality and reproductive rights. Saying if you care about your mother, your sister, talk to two brothers who lost their wives during childbirth. Can you imagine that moment where you're ushering in new life and then you lose the love of your life? But again, that idea of messaging, missing a moment to say, not just standing up for a black woman who's running for the office of the presidency, but protecting and uplifting black women in your community and in your house. So even when we hear those questions about, could black men support a black woman? Is there some misogyny in there? Certainly there is. But no one has benefited from black leadership, the black leadership of women, more than black men in this country.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, look, my only face was about, because like, I don't know if Donald Trump has learned his lesson, but maybe Republicans have, that perhaps Donald Trump at the top of your ticket is actually not helpful to build various coalitions. I don't know, we're going to see on Tuesday. But the point about messaging, I do think it's really important, because, I mean, the vice president, her campaign put out this opportunity agenda for black men. It talks about providing 1 million fully forgivable loans to black entrepreneurs, championing education. There's a piece in there about health care, like a black men's health initiative. You have it on the screen now. I just think that this is targeted, but also it is what, as we've all learned and we were out there talking to voters, it is what should be required of candidates and campaigns across the board. Black people, although they have, black voters have disproportionately cast ballots in support of Democrats and Democratic presidential campaigns, it does not mean that those votes are going to come automatically. And something that the vice president, that I've heard her say oftentimes on the campaign trail, is in fact that she has to earn the votes of everyone, including black voters and including black men. So maybe things are changing.
It's amazing that they listened. They've been saying, where's our agenda for black men?
She's very responsive.
Yes, well, we're being told to wrap, because coming up, how black women's votes will be a deciding factor in this election if the campaigns can convince them their voice matters.
It's a tough time in America right now for women. And I feel like she actually cares about our reproductive rights and health. And it's something that's really important.
Maria Cantwell knows prices are too high, and we have to fight back. That's why she passed a law to take on big oil traders spiking gas prices, and why she's fighting grocery store mergers that would lead to higher food prices. Cantwell also took on drug companies and won, capping insulin for seniors at $35 a month and capping seniors' out-of-pocket expenses.
I'm Maria Cantwell, and I approve this message because I'll take on anyone to protect Northwest consumers.
Baby boomer, Generation X,
millennial, Gen Z.
Many people went from protest to revolution.
I could be dead in a ditch somewhere and my parents wouldn't know.
You could not get on the internet and the phone at the same time.
What you're gonna have from Gen Z are a bunch of activists.
More than ever, dialogue is everything. More than ever, questions require follow-up questions. More than ever, numbers must be crunched, dots must be connected, and steady voices must break through the noise. Because more than ever, it's go time.
when people talk about the suburbs, they're not thinking about y'all?
Not at all.
Oh, absolutely not.
We're painted with a paintbrush that says we're not supposed to be out here anyway.
Right.
That we're not successful, that we don't have the same economic value that people who don't look like us have.
I just don't think, really, to be honest, I just don't feel like my vote matters.
Really?
Yeah, I just really don't.
Those were two of the women that Simone and I talked to last summer for our special, Black Women in America, The Road to 2024. And both of them were from battleground states, Pennsylvania and North Carolina, respectively. They had a lot to say. Dee was the one who said that she wasn't sure that her vote would actually matter in this upcoming election. And Izetta went on to say that she worried about the state of the election and about the questions that were going on with people about Joe Biden. This was before the switch. But we also saw that both of these women reflected some real malaise that may be reflective of the broader sentiments in the Black community. Check out our latest NBC News poll, released just hours ago, that have Black voters and women aged 18 to 49 among the groups with the lowest interest in this election. Those two ladies that you heard from just a moment ago are actually back with us tonight. So let's hear from Izetta, a voter from Montgomery County, one of those collar counties outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, and Dee, a voter from battleground state North Carolina. Dee, I want to talk to you first because you had me some kind of way last summer. Do you still feel like your vote doesn't matter?
I do not feel that way anymore. I am going to vote.
Yeah,
on election day.
Okay, Dee, what changed your mind? What factored into why you are now going to cast a ballot? And I would just like to say, you know, Cardi B also said she wasn't voting, and her mind changed as well. So I think there were a lot of people out there like you, and